Hey friends, how's it going? Lihpnos here. So today's video we're going to be talking about how to make gold in World of Warcraft and specifically passive income. So we're going to be using Trade Skill Master as an add-on, and we're going to be using that to use our professions, or crafting professions specifically, to craft gear and sell it on the auction house at a profit. Now this is pretty much the main way that I make gold. It's pretty much the only way I make gold. I log in pretty much once a day. I don't require you to have any previous knowledge with TSM whatsoever. I'm going to try to take it step by step. I'm going to ignore any of the really detailed stuff, and we're just going to try to use the basics so you can kind of jump into it and use it and get ready to go. This is for retail, but you can actually use the exact same methodology that I'm going to be showing here in Classic if you want to. The same add-on, Trade Skill Master, and you should be able to use it for Classic as well. So even if you don't play retail, you still might want to stick around and kind of listen to this video and see if you can take anything from it. Now, I've only done this for leatherworking, tailoring, and inscription, but realistically it works for any crafting profession. I don't see any problems. Alchemy might be a little bit tricky because there's like certain proc rates, so I'm not exactly sure. I haven't done any alchemy, so I don't know how TSM handles that, but if you're an alchemist out there, you're probably pretty smart, so you can figure it out. So let's get started. First step is going to be installing TSM. So you're going to need the Trade Skill Master add-on. So you can find that on the Twitch application. Just go there, download it, install it, you're good to go. The second thing you're going to need is actually a third-party program, which is from the Trade Skill Master add-on. I believe it's called like the Trade Skill Master or TSM application. On the add-on page, like the TSM add-on page from from the Twitch app, you'll see they'll mention it and they'll link to it. You're gonna have to go there and you have to install that. You'll probably have to make an account and stuff like that. And what this does is it keeps up to date all of the data from the auction house, so that you don't have to do auction house scans and anything like that. It just uses the Blizzard API and just gets all of the auction house data for you, and it just updates it, so it keeps all the prices up to date and relevant. You don't absolutely need these add-ons. However, without these add-ons, it's going to take you way more time and it's going to be way more complicated. I used to do it without add-ons and it was just massive spreadsheets. It was a mess. This add-on, Trade Skill Master, basically automates the entire process so that we don't have to go through and manually do anything. So it's great. So I would suggest using it. Now, I'm not affiliated to TSM at all, but unfortunately there's no alternative right now. It's pretty much the only one, the only auction add-on in its class, if you will. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be crafting items from our professions. On this character I have inscription and tailoring. So we're going to be crafting items, and we're going to be crafting items that turn a profit, and we're going to be selling them on the auction house, and that's it. But realistically, that's basically all we're doing. We're using the Trade Skill Master add-on to determine what items are profitable to craft, streamline and automate the auction, to post your auction, so the posting process, and basically to also automate the canceling process. So if someone's undercut you, you can go in, you can cancel your auction and then repost it up, and then it also keeps track of your gold income. So to give you an idea, you can see here I have just under 3.5 million gold currently on this character. If I look at, just to give you an idea of how much I've been making, so I've been logging in about once per day this month. Well, actually, since I started. So in the last month, if I go just this character alone, so Lip here. So the past month, I've gone from, what was that, 2.6 million to 3.5 million. So I've made just under a million gold this month. Now you can see my sales are about 1.2 million, just under 1.2 million in sales. My expenses about just over 200,000. So end up with about 970,000 gold in profit. Now that's just to kind of give you an idea. It doesn't mean that this is how much you're going to make right off the bat. Takes you a little while to build up and get used to it, but we're going to go through the process, and hopefully you can at least get some profit within the first couple weeks after you watch this video and start setting some stuff up. So quickly, you see there's like when you install the TSM add-on, you'll have a cogwheel on your mini map. You can just click that cogwheel and that'll open up the TSM dashboard. Alternatively, you can also type /TSM and it'll also bring that up if you don't want to have the cogwheel clutter your mini map. So there's a few different tabs here. So there's dashboard, which we've just gone through, groups, the ledger, operations, import, export, and settings. The only stuff we're going to be taking a look at is the groups, the operations, and very quickly, we're going to go through the settings real quick. So if you want to hide the minimap icon in settings, in general settings, that's the very first thing. There's a little button here, you can hide minimap icon. Tooltip settings, that's for the tooltips when you hover over stuff. So you see there's like a whole bunch of data there for min by market value. So if you want to change that or turn it off, if you have something else, you can do that in tooltip settings. Realistically, the only setting that I change is under macros. So you want to go into macros, and this is important for later once we go to post auctions. So you want to have auctioning post cancel button, and then scroll wheel up down and control modifier if you want. Now you can change this around to whatever you want, but this is what I use. And so you want to set those and then click update existing macro, and then that'll set up the macro for you. And you'll see later when we go to post auctions what exactly that the use of that is. So when you open this, you're gonna go over and you're gonna open TSM and you're gonna go to the groups tab, and you're not gonna have any of this. So you're not gonna have inscription and you're not gonna have tailoring, right? You're not gonna have either of these. Now, what you're going to have is just the base group, and what the base group is essentially it's a group of items that is just every item in the game, and these are inscription and tailoring here. These are subgroups. Now these are automatically generated, and I'm going to show you how to generate them. So if you were to go to let's see, profession, so tailoring, so you open your tailoring profession, and look a little bit different. Because this is the TSM window version. You can always switch back to the WoW UI if you want. At the very top right beside the X, there's a little switch to WoW UI button. You can click that, so you can switch back to the default, and you can click the TSM4 button again, switch back to the Trade Skill Master version. So from here, if you want to generate groups, so if you go up to the top here, you got crafts and groups. You want to go over to groups, and then you click the 3 dots, and you click create profession group. At the bottom right, it'll say tailoring group is already up to date. There's nothing to add for you. It'll probably say like, oh, we've added X amount of items to a group, and it'll populate a group. So what I'm going to do with you is I am going to remove my tailoring group. So I'm just going to delete it. And there we go. It's gone. So now the group is gone, so I don't have that anymore. And so if we go to my tailoring profession, we go to groups, 3 dots, create profession group, bottom right, you can see tailoring group updated with 289 items and 105 materials. Perfect. So now we have a tailoring group. You may have noticed that, wait, hang on, like I had 2 other blue groups in here, subgroups, that are no longer there. That's because these subgroups here, these are ones that I created personally, and you're going to create as well when you set this up. So in my inscription, so if we go back to groups here in the main window, so in my inscription you can see I got codex, contracts, glyphs, tomes. This is me just splitting them up, and the reason I split them up is because I want different rules for how I'm going to craft these things and how I'm going to post these things on the auction house. And since I want different rules for them, they need to be in different groups. So you can see that these blue groups are a subgroup of items, and items is a subgroup of inscription, which is a subgroup of base group. You can't have items in 2 groups at any point in time. So I can't have an item that is both in contracts and glyphs. It can only be in one of them, right? So it's kind of like a tree, if you will. And so now what we're going to do is in tailoring, since we don't have any subgroups, we're going to make our own subgroups. And what I mostly sell in tailoring is just crafted gear, whether it's for transmog or whatever. Any sort of crafted gear, I will craft it and I will put it up in the auction house and it'll eventually sell. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a group with you. So if you want to make a group, you just click on whichever subgroup you want. So materials is this is just the materials for crafting, so you don't really care about that. So we want to go to items and you click the little plus and then it creates a new group for you. And we're gonna call this gear, which is just gear, right? Just general gear. And then once if we want to add items to the group, then you just select them. So let's say I want to add all the gear to this group. So let's say we got all these, I want to add them to the group. You select them and then you click add items at the bottom. Boom, add 8 items. There we go. They're all in the group. So now what I have to do is I have to go back down and, you know, select all these items, right? All the ones that I want to move into the group. So there you go. So you can see there's quite a few items here. Don't worry, you only have to do this once. So once you do this once, they're going to be in your group and basically you're done. You can also search. So let's say I wanted to add all the shirts. I can just search shirt and then click all these shirts. There we go. Boom, added. All the items are added now. So I'm going to go ahead and populate this entire group. And once we're done populating a group, I'll be right back. Okay, so there you go. I've added everything that I want to the gear group, and now we're ready to move forward. So, in the event that you're still leveling your professions, you're getting more patterns as you go. If you, for example, were to learn a new pattern, all you need to do to have it get populated back into your group is just go back to groups, and then same thing as we did when we originally created the profession group, just create a profession group and it'll update it. So let's say I just delete Ager Shoulders here, just gonna remove that. It'll remove it entirely, right? It doesn't kick it back up to the items group, it just removes the entire thing. And so what you want to do is you want to go and create profession group, and you'll see that tailoring group updated with 1 item, 0 materials, perfect. So it got updated. Now it's back into items here. So what we can do is when we want to populate our gear, here you go, Ager Shoulders, add the item, and we're done. So now you've populated a group, which is great, which means that you can start applying operations to that group. So what operations are essentially the rules. They're the rules that you want to determine how you craft that item in the group and how you auction the item in the group. So the basically the cost and everything that you sell it at. So we're gonna go through the auctioning. Actually, no, let's do the crafting first. We're gonna go through the crafting operations. So here's the default crafting operations, and the default ones are usually pretty good, but you're gonna want to make one for specifically your own group. So this is the default crafting operations. So we got minimum restock quantity, maximum restock quantity, minimum profit, and some other stuff. So we're gonna go through this one by one. So minimum restock quantity that's basically when you're gonna generate a list of things to craft. Before it adds it to the list, for example, like before it bothers you, what's the minimum amount that you need to recraft? So if it's something that you're making hundreds of, you might be like, you know what, don't bother me till I have to craft at least 50 or at least 20 or 30, right? So if you're someone who just doesn't want to be bothered for only crafting 1 or 2 of a particular type of item, then you might want to increase this. I personally always keep it a 1. As soon as my stock goes below what I want it to be, then I just like to craft it immediately. I don't like to wait until you know, I do bulk crafting. If you know, 1 out of 20 items is ready to craft, then I'm just going to craft it right away. So I suggest keeping this at 1 for any of the crafting operations that you create, and we will create a new one in a minute. So maximum restock quantity, so that's the maximum amount of items that you want to craft. So let's say in this case we're doing gear, so it's tailoring gear. For me, I don't see the reason why I would want to have more than one. Like if I'm making a chest piece and I'm selling a chest piece, there's not really much of a reason for me to have 2 or 3 of them, because, well, they don't sell that frequently. They'll sell maybe once a week, twice, once every 2 weeks, something like that. So I would put the maximum restock quantity to 1. If you're selling something that has a lot of volume, like for example, for me, I also have inscriptions, so war scrolls, which are buffs. I make 20 or 25 of those, right? So I would put my restock quantity to 20 or 25. So up to you. I would suggest starting off with 1 with everything until you get a feel for what sells and what doesn't. So I would just set this to 1 for you. But we're gonna keep the default to what it is, and we're gonna make our own. Minimum profit, obviously you want that on, and then this is how much minimum profit that you're okay with. So for it to trigger for TSM to tell you to, like, hey, maybe you should craft this because it's profitable, this is how much minimum profit that you want to that you're okay with, in a sense. So if you're someone that, like, look, if the item's not at least making me 100 gold, then don't bother me, then you would set your minimum profit to 100 gold. This doesn't necessarily have to be a raw number. It can be a function. So that's pretty much the only stuff that you have to worry about. I don't worry about any of this other stuff except for just applying it to a group. But if we take a look at my gear crafting, for my rule set, I have a minimum restock quantity of 1, a maximum restock quantity of 1. Obviously, I want to have a minimum profit, and my minimum profit is, actually, I don't need this necessarily, but yeah. So let's go gear 2 crafting. So this is something that this is the one that we're going to be using instead of gear crafting. It's fine. So gear 2 crafting, so it'll take the minimum between these two. So it's a function, 50% crafting or 50 gold. So what 50% crafting is half the crafting cost. So whatever TSM determines the crafting cost being, so the total cost of all the materials. So whatever half of that is, or 50 gold, whichever one is smaller, that's going to be my minimum profit for me to make off of an item. So whichever one that is, then that's what it'll be set to. So just to give you an example of other ones, for my war scrolls, you can see here it is. I have a maximum restock quantity of 25. My Vantis runes, I only make 5. Again, Minecraft. This is my minimum profit. Tomes, my glyphs. I interchange between these two, all depending for what I'm feeling between. So I don't actually need the minimum here if I wanted to, so I can get rid of that, right? Because there's only one thing. Yeah, so just to give you an idea of what these look like. So what this does is, let's say we have our tailoring gear here, all right? And we've created a group for it. So let's go to our groups here. So we want to go to our groups, and we have a gear group, right? But there's no operation. So if you go over here, you can see that there's only the default operation is being applied. So if we hop back over to operations crafting and we go to gear 2 crafting, and we want to apply that to our new gear group. So if you scroll down the bottom, group management, apply to operation group, you can click this drop down, and then you can select which one you want to apply it to. So in this case, we want to apply it to tailoring items gear. Perfect. And now there you go. It'll give you a prompt at the bottom left. It's been applied. So if we go to groups, click on gear, group operations, you can see that the gear 2 crafting has been indeed applied and is overriding the parent operation. Perfect. That's what we want. Good. So what this does is, if you were to open up your crafting window, you'll notice that if you go to the groups tab and you select tailoring gear, there's a button called Restock Selected Groups. And you can see that there's a crafting queue window here. So if you click Restock Selected Groups, what it will do is it will check everything that's in that group, and then based off of your crafting rules, so based off of your minimum profit, the cost of the item to craft, everything, and like based on the prices on the auction house, it will bring up, it'll tell you, hey, I think this would be profitable to craft. Here are all of the items, and if you hover over them, these are the items that you're going to need in order to craft these items. Deep sea bag, that shouldn't be there. I probably misclicked that, no problem. And so it'll basically populate a list of stuff for you to craft, so you don't have to worry about it. So you don't have to go through and manually look at all of the potential sales. So you can take a look at this, figure out what you need, and you can simply click them in order to craft them. You don't have to go back to your crafts here and search for them and then craft them. You can just click the item, and then you're good to go. Now, while we're in the crafting window, you'll be able to see here that you got name, craft, rank, profit. So the name is pretty much self-explanatory, so is the rank. The craft is basically how many of these you can make given the materials that you currently have, the combined materials of whatever's in your bags plus whatever's in your bank. The profit is kind of self-explanatory as well. It's how much TSM thinks that you could profit off of this item if you were to sell it at whatever the current price is on the auction house. If you right click anywhere in this bar, you'll be able to switch between crafting cost, item value, and profit. So again, crafting cost crafting, item value is the value at which TSM thinks that you can sell it for in the auction house, and profit is, well, the difference between the two for the most part, minus a couple of fees, right, from the auction house fees. Now, this number on the right side, that's a sale rate. So the higher this number, the more this item sells. So it just sells faster, right? Things that are at 0.02, 0.01, these things, they don't really sell very quickly. At the very, very beginning, you may want to avoid things that are 0.02 or 0.01, just for starters, if you really want. But I still make a lot of this stuff anyways, and even if it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to sell, I don't really care. It's still profit anyways, so I still make them, so it doesn't really matter. But it's entirely up to you. Okay, so now that we've done the operation for crafting, we're going to need an auctioning operation. And what an auctioning operation is basically it's the rule set for which you want to post items. So at what price you want to post the items and all that stuff. So we're going to take a look at the default, and then we're going to go through and we're going to take a look at my auctioning operations as well. So in auctioning operations, you have 3 tabs here. You have details, posting, and canceling. This details tab, we're not going to go over it at all because I don't use it and I don't bother with any of it. So don't worry about it. The only thing that you care about in this tab is group management. This is where you apply it to whatever group that you want. So posting. Now, this is where you're going to set up the rules for posting your auctions. So auction duration, I suggest 12 hours. If you're active, go with 12 hours. And because if you're online in periods less than 12 hours and you never let your auctions expire in that case, setting it to higher than 20, like higher than 12, like if you set it to 24 or 48 hours, the only thing you're doing is you're basically spending more for the post cost. So basically every time you post an item, there's an auction house fee that they just take, right? They just take it, and that's the cost to post something on the auction house. Now that fee is lower if you post it for less time. So if you're someone that's very active, go with 12 hours for sure. I log in like once a day, so I go with 24 hours. But I suggest 12 hours if you can. 48, that's a little bit much. If you're logging in every other day, I guess maybe, but still, I'd go with 12 or 24. Now, post cap. So this is the maximum amount of things that you want on the auction house. So let's say you you're building potions or something, right? So making potions, like how many potions do you want to have up on the auction house at the same time? Now it's not the number of potions, it's the number of listings. So if you're selling them in stacks of 5, right? So like right below it, you can see posted stack size. So if this were 5, and you're selling them in posted stacks of 5, and you want the post cap to be 5, then you would have 5 times 5, 25. There you go. You would have 25 potions up, but it'd be 5 listings of 5, if that makes sense. So allow partial stacks. So what this does is, again, if you're posting stacks of 5, let's say you have 13 potions instead of 15, right? So you'll have, and if you allow partial stack, I always have this on, but it's up to you if you don't like it. So what this does is, let's say you have 13 potions, it'll post a stack of 5, another stack of 5, because that's what your rule said, but then you have 3 left over, and you can either not post them or just post 3. So if you do allow partial stack, then it'll post 3. Keep this amount in bags. This is very useful if you're like someone who raids or does Mythic Plus, that kind of stuff, and you're also selling things that you want to keep in your bags. So like buffs, like War Scrolls, potions, that kind of stuff. If you want to keep a certain amount in your bags, then you can set that to, like, let's say like, okay, well, I always want to have 10 on hand, and with 10 on hand, then in that case, you would always have 10 in your bags, and then all the excess would get posted. So let's say you have 15 in your bags, then 10 would stay in your bags and 5 would get posted. So make sure to keep this in mind if you're someone who's selling things that they also want to keep in bags. Don't post after this many expires. I never use this, but what this does is it won't post the item after it's exceeded so many expires. So if it's expired 100 times, which means it's expired so many times, you're like, yeah, I don't know, this isn't really selling, I don't know if it's worth my time, then it won't post it anymore. You can set that if you want. I don't bother. I just kind of go through, and every couple months I'll take a look at the items and see what's worth it and what's not, and maybe purge out some of the stuff that just there's no way of selling after it's been like 6 months or whatever and I haven't sold one. Then okay, maybe I'll just purge it out at that point. But I never put this to non-zero. Bid percentage and bid percentage of buyout and undercut amount. These you don't want to change. You always want them at 100% in 1 copper. Bid percentage of buyout is basically what is your bid going to be compared to your buyout. It's going to be the same amount. That's what you want. Undercut amount 1 copper. You never want an undercut higher than 1 copper. The reason is because if you have competition, right? So if someone else is selling the same items as you, and you're going into competition with them, which is kind of like auction house PvP in a sense, and when you come in and undercut them, you're going to undercut them by 1 copper, and then they're going to come in and undercut you by 1 copper, and it's basically whoever's more active with their postings and whoever's a bit more resilient. You try to find the times when the other person isn't online, when they're going offline, and you can come in. So if you increase this by 1 copper, right? Or not increase it by 1 copper, but you increase it further. So let's say you go to 1 silver or even a gold. Every time you undercut, you're basically, what it is you're just lowering the value of the item at which you're selling it at. So all it is that you're doing is if you increase this past 1 copper, you're just cutting into your own profits. So there's really no reason to go to undercut for more than 1 copper. There's no reason. All it does is hurt your own profit. So I would keep that at 1 copper. The only other reason would be like crash the market or some more advanced stuff, but you don't have to worry about that. All right, these things seem kind of complicated, right? Like all these functions, all that stuff. Don't have to worry about it too much. The default ones are actually really good. You don't have to change them at all. They're totally fine. You can just keep those if you really want to get into it. There's some videos about like functions and stuff like that for TSM, but for the sake of keeping this video simplistic, we're not going to go into this. The stuff that we will go into is when below minimum and when above maximum. So when below minimum, so when there is something on the auction house that is lower than what you have set as your minimum price. So what is the cheapest amount that which you're comfortable selling it at, right? AKA, hey, as long as I'm making a profit or whatever it is, then I'm okay selling it. So when it drops below that amount, what do you want to do with the item? So you can either not post the item, post at minimum, post at maximum, post at normal, and ignore auctions. I almost always post at normal, and the reason is I still want it on the auction house, and just because I don't want it filling up my bag space. And so I'll just keep posting it up on the auction house until the prices climb back up to a reasonable amount where I'm comfortable selling it at. So I usually just post a normal price, and that's what I do. Set maximum price, again, that's just the opposite of minimum. What's the highest amount that you're comfortable selling it at, which means that, like, what's the highest amount that you think that people will actually buy it at, right? Because, you know, you can, you know, I can sell these things, but I can't sell them for 2 million gold, right? Like these leggings, like there's no way they're ever going to get sold for 2 million gold. So what's the price that I think is going to be a reasonable, if you will, so that people will actually sell it. So that's the maximum price. And then when the lowest auction that's currently on the auction house, when that's already above your maximum price, what do you want to do? I usually just have it post as normal again, and then set normal price. So what your normal price is, so 99% of the time when you go to post an item on the auction house, there's going to be items of its type already there. So it's going to be some, if those items, if the lowest posting of those items is below your maximum price and above your minimum price, so it's somewhere in between, then as long as it's that, then all you're going to do is you're going to just take a look at them at the lowest cost auction, and you're going to undercut it by 1 copper, and there you go, you're done, you're posting it. Now this is going to all be automated by TSM. So then what the normal price does is, let's say that there's no items on the auction house, right? There's just none. Well, what do you do, right? So like what do you do? Like, okay, well, I can't undercut anybody, so okay, well that's when the normal price comes in. So that's the normal price, aka the price point that you would like to set it at. So like kind of like the base price point. So this comes in really handy for things that are a bit less popular for people to make, especially really cheap stuff. When there's none on the auction house, you can kind of set it up a little bit higher and change price. So you don't have to change this. So we'll take a look at my operations for posting. So let's say I have a 5-stack auction, which is all it is just posts in stacks of 5. That's all I use it for. And you can see that these 3 operations I use the exact same, and I just have post normal price. And then for gear, so this is like for my tailoring gear and that kind of stuff. Gear and gear auction here are the exact same, by the way. So I have partial stack off, and the reason is well, you can't stack gear, so it doesn't really matter if it's on or off. And you'll see here, so I usually only craft 1 of them. My post cap's a 5, just in case I craft like 2 or 3 by mistake. And again, it's the exact same thing. The only thing I'm saying changed here is you can notice that I have a little max here, right? A little max open bracket, and then a comma, 500 gold. And the reason for this is just to increase the price of like really cheap items. So if you take a look, if I take a look at my tailoring here, and I go to linen, so go to the bottom. So if I look at stuff like, you know, a white linen shirt, it costs 10 silver to make. It costs nothing, right? And it usually goes for about 10 gold. So you're still making a bit of gold. But the nice thing is let's say that one day there's no linen shirts, right? There's no white linen shirts at all. This normal price, TSM might find that, like, you know what, a normal price, I might do 5 times what the market value is, somewhere around there. And so what I'll do is I'll set it up to like 50 or 60 gold, which is quite a bit higher than what it's currently being sold for, which is good, so you end up making more profit. But what I like to do is I like to crank that up a little bit higher, which is why I do the maximum between whatever TSM thinks and 500 gold. And the reason is because for these really cheap items, people are just getting them for transmogs anyways. And so if there's none in the auction house, I like kind of cranking it up to 500 gold, because I mean, it's a transmog. Who's not going to spend 500 gold on a shirt? 500 gold's a drop in the bucket for pretty much anybody at this point in retail. So that's why this maximum's here. And you'll see another maximum for my glyphs posting. So on my glyph posting, for example, you know, stacks of 1, same thing, same deal. Everything's the same. The only difference is the maximum here. I have 2,500 gold. And that's the exact same principle that I just said before for the gear. For the cheap glyphs, if there's none on the auction house, I'll just crank up the price a little bit, reset the price nice and high, so that once we start undercutting each other, then it'll slowly drop down the price. But it's nice to kind of have a reset at a decent price. And yeah, that's all my auctions. So now we have to apply, or actually, let's go to canceling real quick. Last tab here. this is going to be basically the same for me for all my auctions. I have cancel undercut auctions, yes. So that means that if someone undercuts you on the auction house, you're going to want to cancel that auction and then repost it. So yeah, that's good. Cancel repost higher. I always have this off. By default, it's on. I turn it off. I don't want to care about any of that. Keep posted, I don't bother. And repost threshold, I don't bother. Why? Because I don't do the canceled repost higher. What that does is basically like, if you have an item that's up on the auction house and you're the lowest item, but then the next item above you has a big gap, right? So like if the gap in this case would be higher than a gold, then you would cancel it and repost it and undercut. But I don't bother. I don't bother with that stuff. So if you can see here, like for my gear, for example, canceling, you can see I turn it off. And as soon as you turn it off, these things don't matter, right? The higher repost threshold doesn't matter. And I never keep any posted. That's like always keep so many on the auction house, even when you're canceling. I don't bother. So this is probably what you want for all of your groups whenever, or all of your auctioning things whenever you make them. So if you're gonna make a new one, for example, all it's gonna do is you're just gonna click the plus here, new operation, call it your say gear 2 or whatever, doesn't really matter, and you have an auction. So remember, this is all the same. You're gonna want to apply it to whatever thing you want. You're posting, it's up to you. Post cap, all that stuff, partial stack, like we all went over. You can keep all this the same, set this to normal, and you're basically done, right? Turn that off, you're done. So we're gonna go to my gear here, and we're gonna apply that to our tailoring items gear. Perfect. So here you go. You can see that in group management, we have indeed applied it, and you get a confirmation in the chat box as well. So that's it. We're good to go. Now, from here, we've already talked about repopulating the crafting window. So remember, it'll only repopulate what you have selected, right? So you can always click Q at any point in time and then restock selected groups, and it'll restock everything that you, based on the rules that you've set for both auctioning and crafting, or well, all for crafting, but you'll have all these groups set up. And so when you have certain things, for example, like I have one item here to post. So you're going to go to the TSM, go to the auctioneer, and it'll open the TSM window. Now, TSM window, you have four tabs: Sniper, Shopping, Auction, My Auctions. We don't touch Sniper. We're only concerned about these three. So My Auctions is just a list of all your auctions. It's the exact same thing. If you search the WoW UI, you go to Auctions here. It's the same thing as this. It's just more concise and a bit clearer. So the auctioning window here is where you want to run a post scan and a cancel scan. So these are the two main things that you're going to be doing. So with whatever groups you have selected, right? Because remember, we set up auctioning operations. So when you click on a post scan, it'll go through all the items that you're in your bags. Right now we only have these pants. And it'll build out a list, and then you can post them by clicking post, and you can just keep spamming post, and it'll just keep posting the items based on the rules that you have set. So this process is entirely automated. So let's say you've come now, it's like, okay, you've crafted a few things, you're good to go, you've crafted some stuff. Let's craft some more here. Yeah, there you go. You know, you went, you checked your mail. Here you go. Got some mail, no problem. And now you can come and take a look here, and you're gonna go, all right, run post scan. We got 3 things to post, no problem. It's gonna pop all those 3, there you go, and post, you're done. Now, what you wanna do after that, periodically, you got all your items on the auction house, you want to do run a cancel scan. So what this cancel scan does is it will search through absolutely every single item that you have on the auction house, and it will check to see if someone's undercut you. And if someone's undercut you, it will flag it to be canceled. So you can see here, your auction has not been undercut. So it'll tell you like, yeah, nope, your auction is like prime for next sale, you're good. And then you'll have something like not canceling auction below minimum. So that means that it's not going to cancel this auction. You're not the lowest, but the reason it's not canceling is because the lowest auction that's currently there is below your minimum price, right? Below the minimum amount that you were okay to sell it at. And then the rest here, as you can see, is you've been undercut. Now this means that, like, yes, okay, you have been undercut, so I'm going to flag you to get canceled, and we're going to be able to cancel you. Now, this other one, canceling auctions with Juve undercut, that's basically like you came in and you have multiple auctions, and like, okay, you have, let's say, 2 postings, and you have one posting here, and then you came in later and posted another one, but someone had to undercut you, so you posted below them. That means that the first posting you have is no longer equal to the lowest, so it'll just cancel that one. It's essentially just flagging another flag for cancel. So we're going to wait until this cancel scan is done, and then we're going to keep going. Okay, so our cancel scan is done. So we have 265 items that are ready to be canceled and reposted. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just start canceling them. And you're going to say, like, hang on, Lihpnos, like, you're telling me I got to click 265 times and I have to do this a bunch? No, not exactly. Do you remember the setting macro here that we had set, right? Hold control key, scroll wheel up and down for auction post cancel. So if you hold the control key and you hover the cancel and you just use your scroll wheel, it will cancel items. So if you scroll wheel up and down, you cancel items extremely quickly. So it's very effortless. Keep in mind, I don't know exactly why, it's kind of a slight bug. If you do have a crafting window open in the background, and you go to do it, the macro won't work. And you'll see here, you look at the scroll bar, you'll see it scrolls instead of canceling. So all you have to do is just close this out, and then you can go back and your macro will work again. So just hold control, scroll wheel up and down, and there we go, we're done. It's going to confirm all of them because we've technically clicked too fast. So once it's done confirming, there you go, done canceling. And there you go, you just canceled 265 auctions in a matter of seconds. Now you're going to go over to mailbox, you're going to open up all these, you're going to open them all up. There you go, that's 50 items. Now, you see this little arrow here, circular arrow? This is actually just a quick reload button. So instead of typing /reload, you can just click that button. So what doing a reload does is it actually reloads your mail. So instead of having to wait for a full minute for your mail to refresh, you can just manually refresh it by clicking the reload button. If you're someone who doesn't have great loading times, if your computer's not the best, don't worry, you don't absolutely have to reload this to be efficient. What you can do instead is whenever you grab these items, you can simply just grab whatever's in your mail, run over to the auctioneer, and then post those 50 items, and run back to the mailbox. And by the time you get back to the mailbox, usually it's about a minute, so you don't really waste any time. So now we have a crap load of items in our bags. We're going to do a post scan. So we're going to click post scan, and like before, you're going to see all the items start popping up, and it's going to be, and basically it's posting them on the auction house for the rules that we have set in our operations rule set. And from here it just takes over, and it's going to go through all of them, and it's going to set up the rules. So we're going to wait a little bit for this to finish, and then we'll continue. All right, there we go, our post scan is done. So again, we're just going to post all these items, use our scroll wheel, control scroll wheel up and down, and almost done. There you go. It will lag out a little bit. I don't know if TSM's just not optimized for it or something like that, but it's normal. Your computer will kind of like, not your computer, but WoW will kind of like freeze up a little bit, and that's totally normal. So we're gonna grab the rest of these here. Quick reload. There we go. Got another 13 items, I think. Okay, there we go. So Head back to your favorite auctioneer, do another post scan. So now what we've done is we've essentially gone through the auction house, canceled anything that got undercut, and then we went through our mailbox, we grabbed everything, and then we're reposting it. That's essentially what you're doing the entire time. That's all you're doing. So you're crafting, right? Then you're posting stuff and you're canceling it to repost it. That's basically all you do. That's all I do. And I make quite a bit of gold. You can use whatever favorite crafting profession you want. It doesn't have to be tailoring, doesn't have to be inscription, doesn't have to be leatherworking. It can be whatever, right? Just use whatever you want. Depending on your server, you might make more or less money, or gold rather. But that's, you know, that's just the way it is. You know, you do your best, and as long as you're making a profit, it's passive income for the most part, and it just accumulates over time, and it's really nice. So the last thing I want to touch on in the TSM auctioning window is the shopping tab, because that is a very interesting feature. So let's take a look here. Okay, here we go. Moonglow ink. So I'm missing some Moonglow ink. So what I could do, if I wanted to, just, you know, the only thing that we care about is this little search bar here, and then we have a filter as well, which we're going to be touching in a second, but we're going to go with normal right now. So if I look up Moonglow ink, okay, it'll pop up with Moonglow ink just as normal, and it's like, wow, that's 300 gold. Okay, that's quite a bit for, like, you know, really basic crappy ink. Now, if I go back here, and remember we had this little drop down. So if I go to crafting, if I go Moonglow ink, you'll see that it searches here, Moonglow ink /crafting. You can actually just type that up here as well if you just do a normal search and type it up here. And you'll see now it's populating with a whole bunch of stuff. Now, what all this stuff is it'll take every path, every crafting path to get Moonglow ink, it will take. So for example, you get Moonglow ink from alabaster pigment, right? You get it from a pigment. And that pigment you get from milling herbs. You get from milling earth root, you get it from milling peace bloom, and you get it from milling silver leaf. Now, there's also a feature of back in Legion, they introduced a vendor for specifically for inscription that you can use any Legion pigment to trade for previous expansion and previous content inks. So you can essentially, one roseate pigment, you can get one Moonglow ink out of it. So what it does is it looks at Moonglow ink and it finds the market value for Moonglow ink, which would be 288 gold. And these percentages is what you want to look at. So 100% means market value, means that the item is currently being sold at market value. You can see that right now it's at 106% for Moonglow ink. That means that is above market value. So market value is kind of like I believe it's a rolling average of prices over time, and it kind of gives you a rough idea of what the item, it gives TSM a rough idea of what the item cost should be, or roughly its average cost. Now, you can see as you go down here, buying Ishulin seeds or Earthroot is like it's 4%, right, of the actual market value of Moonglow ink. So this is way cheaper of an avenue to buy, for example, Earthroot. So I'll just buy that out and then mill that to get a little bit of ink. So if I do this, and we're gonna mill that, and then there you go, we got 3 alabaster pigment from that. If you shift click something as well with this tab open, it'll automatically populate the search. So now I can create 2 alabaster pigments. It's not going to be enough. I'll have to buy some more later, but you get the drift, right? So that's the power of essentially the crafting search in general. And this isn't just for inscription pigments, but like, let's say bolt of linen cloth, right? So for tailoring, so there's 2 avenues. I can buy the bolt directly, or I can buy the linen cloth. So which one is cheaper? Here you go, 35%. I would end up buying the bolt of linen cloth in this case, right? If I needed it, especially since it's cheap, right? And you can click these little arrows are going to drop down. Now, when I'm buying items to craft, I do my absolute best to avoid buying anything that's over 100% market value. And the reason is because I don't want to overpay for any of my items. So I'll just wait. I'll wait the next day. I'll wait till, you know, like 12 hours later. I'll wait a couple days and then I'll craft. I'll buy some more and I'll craft it. Especially, you'll get a feel as you go and buy more and do this more. You'll get a feel for when it comes on really cheap, especially for stuff that you use a lot, like materials you use a lot, and you'll just buy them in bulk and you'll just like, oh wow, like someone just went out and farmed like 5 stacks of 200 of this stuff. I'm gonna buy them all out because they put it up for like 10% of the actual market value, and then there you go. That's a huge, you know, huge buy for you. So that's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything. If you search something crafting wise that isn't really craftable, nothing will show up, right? So earthroot, you can't craft earthroot. So if you do a crafting search on earthroot, nothing shows up. So if you take out the crafting, so if you go back and switch to normal and then you do earthroot, you can shift click as well to populate it. Again, there's none on the auction house, it seems. It's interesting. I just bought some. All right, I guess there's none left. Yeah, if you do a crafting search for something that's crafting, you won't see anything. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I know this video's already gone on for quite a long time, so I don't want to extend it too much more. I'm just gonna do a quick recap for you for everything you need to do. Everything you got to do from, you know, getting in here. So remember, step 1. Create your groups. So create your profession groups. So you're going to want to go here. You want to go to groups, click those 3 dots, boom, create profession groups. Bam. All right. This one's already full, but that's what you're going to do. Step 1. Step 2 is make your own subgroups, right? Remember, we want to have different subgroups because we want to post and craft things differently. So make your own subgroups. Then 3, you want to make your operations, right? So you want to make operations for all of these groups. You're going to go through, you can go back in the video and take a look at mine. You can use those. You can use the default if you want. My suggestion to start off with absolutely everything is to basically, when you craft, is do minimum restock quantity 1, maximum restock quantity. Just make one. Just make one thing, even if it's stuff that you're gonna sell. You think you're gonna sell a lot of, like potions or whatever, like big stacks and stuff. Just start with 1, see if it sells. If it sells, start making more. That's what I suggest, just so you don't invest too much of your own gold into this to begin with. Now, all right. So now you've done that. You've set up your groups, you set up your auctioning groups, or your auctioning operations, your crafting operations. Now you make sure you apply them, right? Make sure you apply the operations to your groups, right? Because if not, it's going to just go to default, because by default, it's just default. So make sure that you apply them. You can always check here, it's like, you know, like our group that we made, group operations, gear 2 crafting, perfect. We don't care about any of the other operations. The only things that we care about is auctioning and crafting. Now you've done your operations, perfect. You're gonna want to restock, right? You can click clear queue at the bottom here anytime you want. Go to groups, boom, restock selected, everything's here. Keep in mind that it only takes into account what you currently have in stock as things that are on the auction house and things that are in your bank and in your bags. It doesn't know anything that's in your mail. So if you have, make sure that your mail is empty before you do that. So all right, now that you've populated your crafting queue, if you have the materials, build them out, perfect. If you don't have the materials, all right, let's go, we're going shopping. So you can take a look. You can take a look at the materials that you need, right? So you can take a look. It's like, okay, I'm gonna need some Moonglow ink, some more ink here, perfect. I'm gonna need some shadow oil, ghost dye maybe, and some linen thread. All right, no problem. So you're gonna go through and you're gonna go shop. There's an automated way to shop stuff. I personally don't like it because it doesn't use the crafting search here, so I don't use it personally, so I'm not going to go into it. But go ahead, use the crafting, use the normal search, find the best price, buy up the items. If they're really cheap, buy a bunch of them, and then start crafting all of your stuff. All right, now you've crafted a whole bunch of stuff. Now what do? Remember, You go here, go to your auction tab, you run a post scan. I don't have any items to post right now, but remember, it's going to populate a whole bunch of stuff. Boom, you're ready to post. You get it ready to post, hold control wheel, scroll that, hold control, scroll that mouse wheel, and boom, you go. You're ready to go. You're going to post a whole bunch of items really fast. Now, for now, you're done, right? Now you're going to go off, you're going to run a couple dungeons, you're going to do some stuff, you're going to come back, and you're going to, every time, get into a habit that every time you come back to a main city, or if you're close to an auction, you know, like, you got to run a cancel scan. So if you're in the auctioning tab, boom, you're going to run a cancel scan here, and it's going to go cancel, check for any canceling, and you're going to cancel all that stuff. And then afterwards, after you're done canceling all this stuff, you're going to go to your mail, grab all that stuff, and you're going to repost it. That's it. That's everything you got to do, right? And the only things that you have to do repeatedly, right? Remember that the first chunks you only have to do once. The only things you got to do repeatedly is just check your auctions, cancel, repost, and craft. That's all you got to worry about. Other than that, you want to check your gains, right, over time. So this dashboard here, you can kind of get a bit of a breakdown. You can select which character. So let's say it's just this Lip character. I haven't been farming anything. I've only ever bought stuff and sold stuff on this character for the most part in the last long while. So if you can kind of look at, okay, like past year, past month, 7 days, past day. So past year, I think I reactivated my account some in early November. I think it's been just over a month. I think month and maybe 5 days, if that makes sense. And I've made about almost 1.2 million gold. But just keep in mind that you're not going to get this right off the bat. You're not going to get it right off the bat. Hey, if you can make 10,000 gold, 20,000 gold in a month, right, in passive income, that's a great first month. That's a really good first month, because you're going to learn a lot from that, and you're going to keep going. Don't get discouraged. Just keep at it, and be persistent, and be happy with the small gains that you make, and that slowly turn into bigger gains. Set yourself a goal. Like a good goal would be like, okay, on my first 100,000 gold, my first 200,000 gold, right? My first 300,000 gold, my first 500,000 gold, my first 1,000,000 gold, you know, like the first time I can pay for my sub with a token and I don't have to worry about it. That kind of stuff, right? Other than that, other suggestions, just, you know, again, start small, work your way up. I haven't done the other professions, but you guys are smart, you'll figure it out. It's basically the exact same principle. There's no real difference. I would do the exact same thing. I don't have characters with those other professions. Other than that, the other suggestion I can make is Tuesday is very opportune day. If you're someone who doesn't raid, doesn't do mythic, doesn't have any Tuesday commitments, and you're just kind of like, hey, I'm down to just make gold, you can literally just sit here at the auction house crafting and selling for like 3 or 4 hours and make a ton of gold. I have made upwards of 200 to 300,000 gold in one day, and I mean like one day, I mean like maybe 4 to 5 hours. And all I do is just sit here, and that's on Tuesdays. And the reason Tuesday is because that's when the most people are on. That's when the most people are buying stuff. That's when people are rounding out their transmog for raid. That's when people are getting all their pots ready. That's when they're getting all their buffs. That's when they want, you know, all this stuff. That's when the most people are online. Why? Because they log in for like their weekly chest or whatever it is, right? That's just when most people are on. It's Tuesday. It's patch day. So if you don't have any commitments, that's a very big opportunity for you to sit here, cancel repost, because you're going to have some competition for sure. So, all right, we're probably going to call it here. It's been a bit of a longer video, but hopefully I didn't go too fast. I'm really hoping that you were able to take away a lot from this video. Hopefully you can start some passive income of your own, and maybe afford to pay for your sub through tokens, or hell, if you got your eyes on that big long boy, maybe if you're persistent enough, you might be able to get there before they take it away. Other than that, yeah, if you got any questions, comments, anything, you feel free to post them below. I'll make sure to check them out. And I'll reply to them, and I'll try to answer any questions that you guys have. Other than that, you can also find me on Twitch. I stream on occasion, probably maybe once or twice a week. Right now, I'd like to stream a bit more, but if you want, just go over to twitch.tv/Lihpnos, exact same as the YouTube channel name. And if you see me live, feel free to pop in, hang out, and you can ask me questions. Even if I'm playing a different game, you can still ask me WoW auction questions. I have no problem with that. I'll do my best to help you out. And yeah, just come hang out and have a good time. So yeah, other than that, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy the video. And until next time, take care.